So how does the Rams offense match up against the Packers defense? Well, if you watched my first video about this game when I talked about the other side of the ball, the Packers offense and the Rams defense, I said that I think the Packers will score 27 points, which is a bit of a lot. I think I also said there will be 12 possessions in that one, so it'll be a bit high scoring considering what the Rams are used to because their defense is so good. But the flip side is I do think that this game could be decided by the Rams offense versus the Packers defense. I have a really hard time seeing Green Bay just completely light up the great Rams defense, and I also have a hard time seeing the Rams defense completely shut down the great Packers offense. But on the other side of the ball, really either option is possible. And so let's talk about how they match up against each other. So let's start off with this play. This is going to be a great rushing play. And I think that it's worth mentioning the Rams running game because, the Packers run defense has been suspect at times this year. But also I think that Cam Akers has just been on fire lately, and he can do well against any run defense. And this play is a great example of that. So you see the blocking concept on the screen, and you notice there's a linebacker over the middle. That's Bobby Wagner. He's the guy who could potentially come into play right here, where, there's a left tackle, 77. He's moving up to try and block Wagner, but there's no guarantee he'll be able to get there because of another Seattle player. It's going to be that guy right there. And watch what he's going to do. Right when this play starts, he completely takes him out of the play, takes 77 out of the play. So now Wagner has a straight shot to Akers as no one was able to run up and block him. So that's a good defensive play. And now you have Bobby Wagner, future Hall of Famer, who has a one-on-one shot against Cam Akers. But here's the thing. Cam Akers is on fire, and Cam Akers is really good at football. He makes a move, gets around Wagner, so if he can do that to Bobby Wagner, he can do that to anybody, and that's what you have to deal with for Green Bay. And the advantage is that you're basically forcing Green Bay to play zone, which I don't think they're as good as when they're playing man. I think they're a much better man coverage team, but they still play a good amount of zone, and that's how I think you can beat them. I'll show this play, because this I think is kind of showing the good and bad in a sense. So I do feel like the way to beat Green Bay is in zone, but the reality is Jared Goff can make some mistakes just in general, really, but also in zone coverage. This one is an example. It's cover 3 zone, and Robert Woods is running an out route to his right, to Jared Goff's right. So that's where he's going to try and fit it in. You can see how it can work sort of underneath the defensive back in that area. These plays can work, but they can also be risky. Watch, Goff takes the snap, and you notice this is a risky throw for Jared Goff to make. I mean, you notice the Seattle defensive back, he's kind of breaking in a little bit right here, and if this throw is just a little bit soft, he could easily step in front and get the pick. Not to mention there's another Seattle player who could easily just fade back and get the interception that way. So there's absolutely interception potential on this play, but Goff kind of has a bit of a gunslinger mentality, and he believes he can make any throw at times, which I think is a mistake, and it can get the Rams in trouble. It can also result in the Rams getting some big plays, though. So what happens on this one? Does it work out, or does it backfire in Goff's face? Well, actually neither. It just gets batted at the line and falls harmlessly incomplete, which honestly I think for the Rams is probably a good thing because that would have been a very risky throw, could have been a pick, maybe would have been a pick, and who knows, that game might have been different had that ball not gotten batted down at the line. That's the weirdness of football sometimes. So he has to be careful, and especially against Green Bay, who they have some corners who can make some big plays. Specifically, Jair Alexander, who currently is Pro Football Focus's #1 rated corner. He's just an incredible player, so he's someone that you want to avoid if possible, and I do feel like Goff might not do that, which is advantage Green Bay. But there are ways to beat the Packers defense, and this one is one of them, where sometimes all you have to do is try to get Green Bay to make a mistake and notice their mistakes. That's really a lot of what zone coverage comes down to, where this is a good example. You see this route against this type of coverage, it shouldn't get open, right? You're running straight into a coverage where there is a Green Bay player in the area. But once this play starts, you're going to want to watch Chandon Sullivan. That's the cornerback who he kind of just isn't focused on he just doesn't realize what he's supposed to be doing right now. He drops back, but as you see, the Indianapolis player can cut in, and there's plenty of real estate down there. And it's kind of the thing where the point of zone coverage is so that you'll be closest to anyone who's in your area. So go to someone if he's slightly in your area but a bit off. Don't just stay right in the middle of your zone. Be a little bit more aggressive. Be willing to move around a little bit, because you're just leaving someone wide open right here. As you see, Rivers is easily able to make that throw. You just can't let guys get that open. And I do feel like the Rams will try and take advantage of that kind of thing if possible. This play is another good example of something that they could end up doing if they want to, where what's going to happen is that this is the cover 3 zone for Green Bay. That's what they're in. And for Indianapolis, you notice there's 3 deep routes right there. And the reason why this is so effective is, first, think about the safety, the player who's in charge of covering the middle of the field. He can only cover one of the 2 guys. So he's going to actually go to Phillip Rivers' right and cover the deep route in that area, which now means there's 2 other deep routes and only 1 Green Bay defensive back who's in charge of staying deep. So what do? Well, you have to have a linebacker notice this, and he's going to basically try and cover the tight end, Trey Burton, who's also going to be running deep. But again, that's a bit of a mismatch, and it could give you an advantage. Watch, Rivers takes the snap, and you notice that, yep, both Green Bay defensive backs cleared out, meaning there is a gap over the middle, and Trey Burton has a little bit of a step right here. And so there's X's and O's ways to beat these types of coverages, and it really makes things a lot easier. So even if Jared Goff isn't 100%, you still kind of have that that thing working for you, where you can just sort of X's and O's your way down the field. Now, Rivers does make a good throw, and this wasn't poorly defended by any means. I know someone got wide open. Worth mentioning, Preston Smith was the linebacker trying to cover Burton. So, that's what they were kind of dealing with there. And that's something that you can get to your advantage if you're playing Green Bay, and you can run the ball because you force them into zone coverage. Someone I think we should talk about is Christian Kirksey, who he's been hurt for a good portion of this season. He's been hurt for a good portion of his career, but when he's came back, I think he's played well, and I think he certainly had his moments. And I think that he helps a lot just as a linebacker over the middle, and this play is a good example of that. So there's an Indianapolis receiver who's going to run a route that he's basically faking as though he's just going to completely keep going, but he's going to stop basically after he gets in Christian Kirksey's zone. Christian Kirksey's the middle linebacker, so in charge of covering the middle of the field. And that's kind of the way this works. There's also a receiver who's going to chip an edge rusher and then run out to the flat to the left. But that's going to kind of draw Kirksey in a little bit, which could make the gap bigger. Watch. So Rivers takes a snap, and you see Kirksey, he starts to move out to the receiver running to the flat, but then realizes, oh, there's someone right behind me, and he could get open. I have to make sure I cover that up as much as possible. That's what he realized he had to do, and it's dangerous. If he doesn't make it quickly, then he could be in trouble, or the Packers could be in trouble. But he does step in front of Burton. That was the open guy, which now forces Rivers to sort of scramble around and can't get much going. So that's just a good play. And, they can do well in zone coverage. They're not one of these teams that just sucks at it. They're fine at it. They're fine. They're just better at man. And so there are ways to beat them if they're playing this type of coverage. And that's what you're going to have to do if you're the Rams. Now, there is an advantage to zone. And if you're playing cover 2 zone, there's an even bigger advantage. But the advantage is that all of your players are going to be facing the quarterback, which can work out, especially when it's a guy like Jared Goff you're going up against, where it's a cover 2 zone, and you have a player running an easy route to gain some yards against this coverage. You just run underneath the coverage, Rivers hits you, you pick up some yards, can't go broke, making a profit. That's how this play works. So right when this play starts, Rivers is going to look up, and again, as you see, it's open, which is fine. This is almost by design. Green Bay knows that this thing can happen. You would like to, obviously, not have him be as open, but there's only so much you can do. It's not a big deal. But what's going to end up happening is what's actually interesting on this play. Watch how it's a high throw, and that results in an interception. So you can sit here and say, well, that's kind of fluky, right? Tipped pass, interception, just because, it was Kirksey. He was looking up and he made the grab. Like, fine, good awareness, but still, that's not going to happen too much throughout the course of a game or a season. but it is going to happen a decent amount. And you'll get maybe over the course of a season, you might get 5 to 8 of those if you're paying attention. So that gives you an additional advantage of getting those turnovers, which obviously are huge swings in the game. So the zone coverage can kind of help them there, especially against a quarterback like Goff, who is known to have the occasional misthrow or have the occasional dumb decision. Again, and I think it'll be even more so if we don't know Goff's health. So that's just an interesting wrinkle. I suppose it's still possible Wolford could play, but I'm assuming it's going to be Goff. Who knows, I guess. But yeah, I think that this is an interesting matchup. I do think the Green Bay Packers win this one. I'm not counting the Rams out. I'm really not. I have this as a 23-27 Packers victory. I think that I think the Packers defense will do enough, and I think the Packers offense will do enough. It's a big time matchup. I'm looking forward to it. It should be fun. But yeah, I have Green Bay winning. Who do you guys have? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.